so much for joining us on this very, very auspicious occasion. We have Her Grace Krsnanandini Prabhu with us, and we are so privileged to have her in our presence and to have time from her. And, just from behalf of the Sadhvi Sangha team, we are so grateful to have you here. And before I introduce you, I came across one of your dreams that you had about Prabhupada, and I'd just love to share it with everyone. So in here you say that Srila Prabhupada had returned to earth and was giving darshan to hundreds of devotees from everywhere around the world. And you were sitting not too far away from him, and you were very grateful about that. And then one of the devotees started revealing their hearts and sharing with them the pain and problems they were having in their marriages and families. Their painful stories was told that Srila Prabhupada was listening to these painful stories with loving kindness and concern. And then he turned to you, pointing his index finger at you, and he instructed that you show them how to have a real Krishna conscious marriage. And you were completely stunned, divorced at that time, and with 7 children. You never wanted to say but to Prabhupada, but you did. And then Prabhupada kind of just gave you one of those looks, and you knew that this was an instruction that you had to fulfill. And now, we're speaking with you, and you have 10 biological kids, but 19 children altogether. And this is excluding all of the other sons and daughters and devotees that you look after. So we're just very grateful that you're extending your motherly love to all of us. So yeah, Prabhu got initiated in 1972, and she is a certified family life educator and is the president of the Grihastha Vision Team and co-director of the Dasi Ziyad Family Institute. She and her husband, Tariq, have designed and implemented several curricula relating to marriage, family, and youth, including the Young Pioneer Project, the Self-Healthy Relationship Course, Parenting for the 21st Century, and many more. They've co-written several magazines and newspaper articles and videos, and facilitated scores of workshops, seminars, and other projects for individuals, family, and couples growth and development. They've worked with many couples and families before and during marriage, and with hundreds of people to teach them healthy relationship skills. So yeah, I'll hand over to Mataji, who will be speaking to us today on faith and surrender. And once more, we're just so grateful to have you with us. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Bhakti Tara. I'm very grateful to be here. It's definitely the mercy of Srila Prabhupada that I can sit before you all and share a little something about faith and surrender. And I pray that I have all of your blessings and well wishes to be able to do that. And so we'll just start with our invocation of a few of the songs, and then we'll share a little scripture and talk a little bit about it. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Janna Vallabha Givardhari, Gopi Janna Vallabha Givardhari, Yashoda Nandana Raja Jana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Raja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Balachari, Yamuna Tira Balachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to read a little bit from the Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 11th canto, chapter 20, text 28 or 27 to 28. Again, that's canto 11, chapter 20, text 27 to 28. Jata shada matkat tasu nivanaha sarva karmasu veda dukakmakan kaman parityage pi anishvara tato bhajeta mam pritaha shada lordrita nischaya jushamanaschatan kaman duko darkam strikarayan. Having awakened faith, translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Sri Swami Prabhupada. Having awakened faith in my glories, in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The beginning stage of pure devotional service is described here by the Lord. A sincere devotee has practically seen that all material activities lead only to sense gratification, and all sense gratification leads only to misery. Thus, a devotee's sincere desire is to engage 24 hours a day in the loving service of Lord Krishna without any personal motivation. The devotee sincerely desires to be established in his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and he prays to the Lord to elevate him or her to this exalted position. The word anishvara indicates that because of one's past sinful activities and bad habits, one may not immediately be able to completely extinguish the enjoying spirit. The Lord here encourages such a devotee not to be overly depressed or morose, but to remain enthusiastic and to go on with his loving service. The word nirvana indicates that a sincere devotee, although somewhat entangled in the remnants of sense gratification, is completely disgusted with material life and under no circumstances willingly commits sinful activity. In fact, this aspiring devotee avoids every kind of materialistic activity. The word kaman basically refers to sex attraction and its byproducts in the form of children, home, and so forth. Within the material world, the sex impulse is so strong that even a sincere candidate in the loving service of the Lord may sometimes be disturbed by sex attraction or by lingering sentiments for wife and children. A pure devotee certainly feels spiritual affection for all living entities, including the wife and children, but he knows that material bodily attraction leads to no good, for it simply entangles one and one's so-called relatives in a miserable chain reaction of fruitive activities. The word dridha nischaya, steadfast conviction, indicates that in any circumstance, a devotee is completely determined to go on with his prescribed duties for Krishna. Thus, the devotee is thinking, by my previous shameful life, my heart is polluted with many illusory attachments. Personally, I have no power to stop them. Only Lord Krishna within my heart can remove such inauspicious contamination. But whether the Lord can remove such attachments immediately or lets me go on being afflicted by them, the devotee thinks I will never give up my devotional service to him. Even if the Lord places millions of obstacles in my path, and even if because of my offenses I go to hell, I will never for a moment stop serving Lord Krishna. I am not interested in mental speculation and fruitive activities. Even if Lord Brahma personally comes before me offering such engagements, I will not be even slightly interested. Although I am attached to material things, I can see very clearly that they lead to no good because they simply give me trouble and disturb my devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, I sincerely repent my foolish attachments to so many material things, and I am patiently awaiting Lord Krishna's mercy. So that's the mood of the devotee. I'm going to read it a little more. The word prita indicates that a devotee feels exactly like the son or subject of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is very attached to his relationship with the Lord. Therefore, although sincerely lamenting occasional lapses into sense enjoyment, the devotee never gives up their enthusiasm to serve Lord Krishna. Because if a devotee becomes too morose or discouraged in devotional service, he or she may drift into an impersonal consciousness or give up his devotional service to the Lord. Very important point. Therefore, the Lord here advises that although one should sincerely repent, he should not become chronically depressed. One should understand that because of his past sins, he must occasionally suffer disturbances from the material mind and senses, but one should not therefore become a devotee of detachment, as do the speculative philosophers. Although one may desire detachment to purify one's devotional service to the Lord, if one becomes more concerned with renunciation than with acting for the pleasure of Lord Krishna, that person is misunderstanding the position of loving devotional service. Faith in Lord Krishna is so powerful that in due course of time, it will automatically award detachment and perfect knowledge. If one gives up Lord Krishna as a central object of one's worship and concentrates more on knowledge and detachment, one will become deviated from one's progress in going back home, back to Godhead. A sincere devotee of the Lord must be sincerely convinced that simply by the strength of devotional service and the mercy of Lord Krishna, he will achieve everything auspicious in life. One must believe that Lord Krishna is all merciful and that he is the only real goal of one's life. Such determined faith combined with a sincere desire to give up sense enjoyment will carry one past the obstacles of this world. The words jata shadaha matkatasu are very significant here. By faithful hearing of the mercy and glories of the Lord, one will gradually be freed from all material desire and clearly see at every moment the utter frustration of sense gratification. Chanting the glories of the Lord with firm faith and conviction is a tremendously powerful spiritual process that enables one to give up all material association. There is actually nothing inauspicious in the devotional service of the Lord. Occasional difficulties experienced by a devotee are due to his previous material activities. On the other hand, the endeavor for sense gratification is completely inauspicious. Thus, sense gratification and devotional service are directly opposed to each other. In all circumstances, one should remain, therefore, the Lord's sincere servant, always believing in his mercy. Then one will certainly go back home, back to God. Om Anjana Timirandasya Jana Jana Shalakasya Chakshurandilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sendo Dinabando Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute, Tata Kanchana Garangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranamami Hari Priye, Vanchakarpaturubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All together, everybody. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is, even though the purport was a little long, and it's written by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, I should say. It was a very good purport in terms of our topic and subject matter today. We're talking about faith and surrender. And these are the key components of a devotional life, is faith and surrender. Having firm conviction in God's word. Having firm conviction means that if God says it, we accept it. We may not understand it, we may not be able to conceptualize it, but if God says it, or the pure representative of God says it, we accept it. And that's a faith. And in our teaching, Shraddha is the word that means faith. And we understand from Srila Rupa Goswami that faith means to accept the Lord and follow his instructions no matter what. To be firmly convinced, as this text said, that if I engage in devotional service, everything gonna be all right. And that means no matter what the challenge is or no matter what the test, we accept that. And it takes faith to begin the process of devotional service, because you have to believe that there's power greater than you, and there's authority greater than you, and there's some guidance that this power and authority has given us so that we can get back home or get back to our ultimate goal. Why do we believe? Where does that faith come from? Faith comes from association with devotees, and faith comes from the blessing of a pure devotee. This is why it's really good to be around sincere believers in God, because that enhances our own faith. And we have so many stories in the scriptures of faith. We have Draupadi, and when the demons were trying to disrobe her and disgrace her in this assembly of no good men, pretty much, she had faith, and that's all she could do, because she couldn't fight and protect herself, so she had faith. In fact, she just had faith and surrender, because Draupadi just threw her hands up and said, Lord, you can save me or not, but you're still my God. And so the Lord saved her, of course, and that's, an important story. So this element of Shraddha, faith, it helps us to negotiate and navigate when a world is hard and harsh. We still believe, we still accept that Krishna said, if you do this, you serve me, chant my holy name, you serve the devotees, the outcome will be that your heart will be pure, that you will be able to come back to Godhead in your eternal position as my lover, my friend, whatever your service is. So this faith is so important. And it's a gift. Faith is actually a gift. Because when you have doubts, when you have no faith, when you're skeptical, that's a scary place to be. And Srila Prabhupada, when he came to America, he came to give us faith, or to enhance faith, because he had so much faith. Oh my God, Prabhupada believed. in the words of his teacher, his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He believed in the words of the Lord. He believed in Lord Chaitanya's message. He believed, he had faith in the power of the holy name. And the holy name alone can render all benediction. But one has to have that kind of faith. Krishna is a God that wants us to voluntarily serve him. In other words, he could force it, but then that wouldn't be love. So volunteer service starts with that faith. And then with that shraddha, we're guided to associate sadhu sangha with the devotees. And that sadhu sangha, especially if the devotees are sincere or, mature, will enhance our faith. And then from that, we'll get guidance to take up spiritual practices. That's why we're chanting every day the holy names, and we're avoiding certain sinful activities, and we're reading the scriptures. So we've taken up these devotional practices and bhajana kriya. And then after that, we become, we get to a stage called Anarjanavritti, where the gross desires or the gross things are gone. More subtle disturbances are there, disturbances in the mind, desire for distinction, adoration of profit, and those kinds of things. But the faith is a gradual process that ends up in love or prema. It's the beginning stage of love, actually. And if you stay in a good association, if you read the scriptures, that faith will automatically develop, because that is the blessing of the great acharyas. They have given us the blessing that we, with faith, and they're actually helping us in our journey back to Godhead. So in the very beginning of this Krishna consciousness movement, when Srila Prabhupada brought it to America, there were no temples and no vegetarianism, and practically speaking, and no yoga. But just because of Prabhupada's faith, look at it now. You have vegetarian, vegan, everything, yoga, kirtans. So that one devotee's faith is really blessing the whole world. And so with this faith, we can be transformed ourselves, and others can be transformed. And what is faith? Why do we believe that, for example, if we offer food to a picture or a statue, that God will accept it? That's faith. Because we accept the words of the acharyas, of the pure devotees, that the Lord comes in his paintings and he comes in his deity forms, if we have that sincere desire and we follow the instructions of the disciplic succession. So we believe that. We believe, we go in that kitchen, we clean ourselves, we prepare food in love, we make a nice plate, we don't taste the food, and we offer it to the Lord. Why? Because we have a little faith that by doing that act, the Lord will accept it. Pacham pushpam palam patalyam yo me bhakti apriyachati tadam bhakti uparatam ashnami priyatatma. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. So we have faith in the Lord's word, that by doing that, he'll accept it. And Krishna's acceptance means that it becomes purified, that no longer is food, it's actually love in a form that we can taste. So this is very beautiful, but we believe that. And other people may say, oh, that's silly, that's just a picture, or that's, But because we have that faith, then we do the service and Krishna reciprocates. And, faith doesn't mean in spiritual life it's always going to be simple. As you all know, so many stories of the devotees going through so many challenges and obstacles and problems. And great devotees, and because that's the nature of the material world, you're going to have these challenges and tests, but the faith will see you through. And the more you take up this faith, faith is exemplified because you do what it's supposed to do. Like Bhakti Tara shared the dream I had of Prabhupada. And it took a little faith for me to try to accept that instruction. And then it finally took surrender, because what I really did after some months or maybe even years, I finally went in my deity room and I said, Lord, I have been given this instruction by Srila Prabhupada. I don't know how to carry it out. I don't even have a husband, but I surrender. And that I did a dandavat, and I surrendered that whole everything. And after that, things started coming, and I got the husband. We got lots of training. People started asking for help. Just things that, I mean, we had a lot of tests and a lot of challenges, but things started falling into place once I surrendered. So this surrender is key. And, you know, we're in this eternal competition. Our higher self and our lower self. Our higher self is that spiritual spark of God that wants to align with God and be happy. In that lower self is that false ego that wants to compete with God and see if we can't be the controller or the enjoyer or the proprietor. But we'll never be the controller or the enjoyer or the proprietor. And surrender means understanding that. So we have the story of Bali Maharaj. His false guru or imposter guru, Sukracharya, told him not to give the Lord what the Lord asked for. But Bali Maharaj, very, very special soul, he gave the Lord what he asked for. He surrendered. But it did seem after the surrender, he had tests, but he never once wavered in his determination to give the Lord what he asked for. So that's a really good example for us. And I was thinking about some very good instances of faith and surrender in our time. And I was thinking about my beloved spiritual master, of course, Prabhupada, the number one epitome of what faith means. To have nothing and to come based on instruction that his guru told him, you go share this message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the Western world. People are suffering. And his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta, said, it'd be good for you and good for those who take to it. So that's what Prabhupada did, came here with no money, no associates, nothing. Faith is the key. And we have to have that faith. That faith is the initial investment in loving God. And as we step out on faith, we get more faith. And that faith then carries us through those stages we were saying in Arjuna Vritti, where we have gradually lose the desire for sinful activities. And then we become very firmly convicted. Nobody can shake us. Krishna is God. He's my best well-wisher. He's my friend. He's real. And I'm going to stick with him. And then we have some taste. We develop a taste for chanting. And so we like hearing the holy name. We like being around devotees. We like the Rata Yasha festival. We like serving the deities. We like serving the devotees. It's the taste becomes deeper and deeper, ruchi. And then attachment, which is a deeper expression of that taste. And then bhava, which is the preliminary stages of love of God, where we just want to serve the Lord, and we just want to trust him, and we just want to see him everywhere and everything. So that's where faith will bring us. And then that surrender, where, Lord, I am just going to trust you. I can't see all the answers ahead of time, but I'm going to trust that you've made a way for me through the Bhagavad Gita, through the Bhagavatam, through Prabhupada, through the Guru, and therefore I surrender. And that surrender just simply means accepting your real position. I'm an eternal servant of the Lord. I belong to the Lord. He loves me, and I'm just trusting that whatever he does is good. There's a biblical saying that, let's see if I remember it. Everything worketh together for the good of they that love the Lord. And that everything. So so-called calamities, obstacles, everything worketh together for the good of they that love the Lord. And I even say, even those that don't, because Krishna has a plan, and his plan is to bring everybody back home, back to Godhead. Some people will come quickly, and some people will take lifetimes, you know. There's a little song that I used to sing. It's just a matter of time when we all see Krishna. It's just a matter of time when we all go back home. But wouldn't you rather it be sooner than later? Wouldn't you rather be a lover more than a hater? Wouldn't you rather be a believer more than a deceiver? Wouldn't you rather serve Krishna right now? Wouldn't you rather serve God? So this whole idea of faith and surrender is about choosing right now to serve God and to trust him. And you learn what pleases God by reading the scriptures and by hearing from the bona fide teachers. And then you act accordingly. And then Krishna reciprocates with such a depth of love that is pretty much indescribable. And that's why even though devotees go through so-called hardships and tests and trials, because the Lord in the heart is reciprocating their faith and their surrender, they're able to manage. And I'm going to tell one more little story about faith, and two. One is the cobbler and the Brahmin. So Narada Muni, our transcendental spaceman, our very advanced senior God brother in our disciplic succession, spiritual master to great souls, he was passing through the earth, and at one point he saw a Brahmin, and he let the Brahmin know that he was going to see Krishna, see God. And the Brahmin said, well, Narada, you're going to see God. Ask him, when am I coming home? And Narada said, okay, because he was thinking, you know, this Brahmin, he's so pukka, you know, he does everything just right, all the rituals on time and so forth and so on. And then he went on, he passed a cobbler. Now, a cobbler, you know, he's got an occupation that's considered very low class, dealing with dead animal skin and making shoes and whatnot. But he was a devotee of the Lord. And so when he asked Narada Muni, he said a similar question. He said, you're going to see the Lord? Well, just ask the Lord, when am I coming home? And so Narada said, okay. So Narada finally got to the spiritual world, and he was welcomed by the Lord. And then he, as he was about to leave, come back, he said, oh Lord, by the way, the Brahmin down on earth, he wanted to know when he'd be coming back home. And the cobbler down on earth, he wanted to know too. So the Lord said, for the cobbler, I can tell you right now, at the end of this life, he'll be coming back. I'll be happy to see my devotee. And he said, for the Brahmin, I don't actually know. It's going to be a few lifetimes. And Narada was puzzled, bewildered. He's like, oh, this Brahmin, he's so, you know, ritualistic. He does everything on time and the chanting the mantras and blah, blah, blah. And so finally, the Lord said, you'll understand why I'm saying that. They're going to ask you, when you see them, what was I doing? And you tell them that I, the Lord, was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. And Narada smiled, because the Lord just got all kind of stuff going. And so he came back to the earth, and he saw the Brahmin, and he duly informed him what the Lord said. And the Brahmin said, oh, I don't believe you even saw the Lord. I mean, because what was he doing anyway, you know? And he said, well, the Lord was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. And he said, see, No, you didn't see the Lord. Because who can thread an elephant through the eye of a needle? That's so, oh, that doesn't even make sense. Okay. So then Narada went on, he saw the humble cobbler. And the cobbler, he told the cobbler what the Lord said. And the cobbler said, oh, my Lord, he is so wonderful. And Narada said, you believe? He said, believe that. He said, what's that for my Lord? He said, you see that banyan tree over there? Those little tiny seeds. In that seed, it was that huge banyan tree and many others. So what is it impossible for my Lord? So Narada could understand the difference between these two apparent devotees. One had deep faith and one had pretty much no faith. One was sort of an external devotee servant. So that's a really good example of the difference in one's faith. Faith is very crucial to our development, our advancement in spiritual life. And then the other one was Lord Chaitanya had a secretary, Swarup Damodar. And different people would write poems and essays and things like that to present to Lord Chaitanya, but before it could get to Lord Chaitanya, it had to go through his secretary. And who was very, very careful to weed out unnecessary things. So this one Brahmin, he came and brought this beautiful poem about the Lord. And he said everything was really nice in it and beautiful, but there was one verse in it where he said that Lord Jagannatha was a statue, but Lord Chaitanya was alive. And Swarup Damodar, Lord Chaitanya's secretary, was very, he said, you don't understand spiritual life. So you do not understand spiritual philosophy. If you think Lord Jagannath is a statue, you have no clue to spiritual understanding, and you need to go and hear from some learned devotees. So I will not present your paper to Lord Chaitanya because of that. And his idea was for one who sees the deity of Jagannath as a statue and not understand that Jagannath and Chaitanya are one and the same, then he had a very different kind of faith and understanding that needed some growth. So I think I'll stop here, Bhakti Tara, and we'll see if there's any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for that beautiful talk. It was really inspiring. I haven't seen any questions so far. I'll just quickly check again on Facebook.
Oh, okay. I can do a little more then. If
I have a quick comment.
Oh, hey, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother Krsnanandini. Thank you very much. Always inspiring since birth. I wanted to say you mentioned about the faith, and that's very I guess the most important thing for all of us. But it begins with faith, and you in particular you mentioned prasadam, and there's so many stories of how people became attracted to Krishna consciousness simply because of they tasted prasadam. There's even stories of people said, I had this exact same thing, but when I got it from the temple, it just tastes so much better, So, I can appreciate that, we grew up just eating prasadam, and so many people, they just came and they're like, what is this? I mean, my mom makes rice, but this rice is different than the rice, So that's one thing. And then another thing is, the faith for chanting, right? So when we chant, after a while, you just there's this taste. And so it starts off just believing what Srila Prabhupada said, by chanting, the taste increases. You have to have that faith. But then as you actually practice and you do this daily, then you're like, oh, that's what they're talking. And more, ever increasing. I used to didn't understand what that meant, unlimited love of Krishna. It just never stops. And you can start to experience that by chanting. So that's all I wanted to say.
Excellent point, Shaima Vallabha. Thank you for sharing that, son. Because that's the whole essence of spiritual life, is that you have faith, and then you engage in the practice because you have faith. And because you engage in the practice, then you become not just a believer, but then a knower. But then not just a knower, but then a realizer. That's why this is called the science of self-realization. It's a gradual state from belief to faith to trust to knowing to realization, you know. And so when you realize something, that is an internal conviction and knowledge that nobody can take from you. And so as you practice chanting Hare Krishna, then you come to know the power of the name, and you come to realize that this is real. You know, calling God's name actually is connection with God. It actually is purification of the heart. It's actually connection with other people. It's so much benefit in chanting God's name. So thank you for sharing.
Hare Krishna. So we have some questions coming through.
Okay.
Cool. So when Devotee asks, or she says that you said that Brutality told, you save me or not, you are my God. So she's thinking that God must protect me somehow. So this devotee is asking, can you please tell us how we can develop this consciousness?
Okay, so how do you develop this consciousness of total surrender, like you trust the Lord? You know, so for example, someone may have an illness, and we may say, oh, Lord, please save me by healing me. And the Lord may not heal me. And we have to also accept that not healing as Krishna's mercy. And so you develop that faith, and by being in a good association with others who have faith, by reading God's word and implementing it, by prayer, and also by just, you know, coming to understand the nature of God. This is what Prabhupada really wanted for us. He wanted us to understand the Lord as the most loving person, but also as the one who does everything. There's nothing that Krishna is not connected with. And so this is why Prahlad had such faith, and it's hard to accept that sometimes, but Prahlad was thinking that Krishna is allowing my father to torture me like this. He wasn't even so much thinking about Hiranyakashipu. He was saying, Krishna is arranging this, so let me appreciate that. And therefore, he didn't get angry with Krishna because he accepted that everything that happened to him was by Krishna's arrangement. And so by studying the scriptures, by chanting Hare Krishna, by associating with devotees, that kind of firm conviction comes within our heart too. By praying, you know, we have 9 processes of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnava, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Arjanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. So all of these processes, hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna, remembering Krishna. And as we hear the stories of other devotees, this is why, you know, the Bhagavatam is full of just stories of other devotees. And it's really examples of what to do and what not to do, you know. But in order to get this kind of faith, we pray for it, and we just keep steadily being engaged in the process, and it will automatically come. Just like Prabhupada explained, well, the devotees explain here, but in other, that when you engage in devotional service, you automatically get good qualities. You automatically become kind. You automatically become forgiving. You automatically get detached. And so it's a natural thing that goes along with the process. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for that wonderful answer. It was so practical.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, for the nice answer.
Hey, Bhavani. Thank you, sweetie. It's good to see you.
Yes, Mataji. This it helped me a lot. Your answer helped me a lot. I'm trying to contact you. Actually, I'm not able to reach you.
I know, sweetie. Give it a little time, because right now there's a lot of people trying to contact me, and I am trying to respond. And the family is kind of helping me. So, but I've seen your emails and your texts, and we will respond.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Please take care of your health.
All right. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Cool. So we have a few more questions here. They're coming in fast. If faith is a gift, what can we do to develop the mood of a receiver or to attract that gift?
Okay. Well, one of the things to do is to really study the lives of people who had real faith. And that's really why I encourage people to read Prabhupada's Lilamrita, because it's just such a story of faith from beginning to end. Sometimes we see the outcome of what Prabhupada did and we say, wow, fantastic, but we have no idea all the different obstacles and challenges that he endured just to get to this point. So one way to develop faith is to read stories of others who have faith. And another is to actually pray for it and really kind of be careful not to offend the devotees, because that's sort of when the door becomes shut. If you offend Krishna's servants, then you don't get to be a part of the inner circle. So that's what you want to be careful of. But I would say, and chanting Hare Krishna really, really does make faith, because Krishna is not different from his name. And the more we say the name, the more purified we become. And so just the idea that, oh, I believe that. And how do I prove I believe it? Because I'm chanting, every day, or I'm chanting whenever I can, or, that's how you show you believe it. You're actually doing that. And let's say you even don't believe it that much, but you believe it a little bit. You should try it, because the nice thing about spiritual life is scientific. It works. So if you actually do it, then you'll begin to feel the benefits of it. And it's kind of like, there's this thing in the modern world where people are living together instead of marriage. And sometimes they ask us, well, what difference does it make, Mother Krsnanandini? And they ask my husband, Peter Chabri. I mean, we're both living together just like, but God, Krishna has put his sanction on marriage for human beings. So that's the difference that it makes. And if you do a correct marriage, then there's blessings that's different from just living together. There's blessings because God put blessings on whatever he does. God has set up order and guidelines in our world. And if we follow those, we'll actually be happy even in this life and the next. But as human beings, we have to sacrifice some things. We can't just do it like the animals do.
Wow, very, very wonderful answer. Really changed my perspective. Cool. So here's a devotee asking for some of your personal experience where your own faith has perhaps been shaken a bit, if that has ever happened to you, and what you did during that time.
Yeah, very nice question. I'm sure that this is a journey, the journey back to Godhead. And we all have our ups and downs. And I think I was very fortunate to have the kind of mother that I had, Mother Devi Dasi, also a disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Swami. I'm Prabhupada. And I was thinking Bhakti Tirtha Swami. So I've had some really good influences in my life that had such faith, and just being around them, it helped me a lot. But when the faith was shaky, somehow it never got shaky where I didn't believe that Krishna was God or that he didn't love me. So that was always there. Sometimes our faith weakness may be, oh Lord, maybe I just can't do this, And this is what we were reading about in this text. The devotee sometimes is a little weak and they say, Lord, I know it's not right to do this and this, but look at me, I'm doing it. But that kind of honest devotee is very dear to Krishna, actually. And Krishna will help that devotee to get better, to improve, to get stronger. We need spiritual strength more and more to maintain our devotion. But when I have had times of shakiness, I usually try to read a story or hear a lecture from Prabhupada or chant Hare Krishna or call one of my devotee friends. There used to be a show on TV and they had what they call a lifeline. It was a game show. And so when you got to that point where you were either about to lose a lot of money, you could call out. And that person you called out was their lifeline. They could actually answer a question. Well, we all need those lifelines. Everybody should have people in their lives that they can call on when things are shaky. It should be someone who cares about you, hopefully someone who's mature spiritually, and when you're down, they'll help you get up. So being able to have those kinds of mentors, those kinds of friends is very, very important, very significant.
Thank you. So one person from Facebook has asked, if we become discouraged due to personal difficulties in communities of devotees, could it be better to be very selective in association until we are stronger from that association to expand our community?
Sometimes we do have to put a little distance between ourselves and people that they're very negative or they bring us down too much. But we should never do it with resentment or hatred. Even when someone really does something to you, a devotee, an advanced devotee, a mature devotee, someone who's striving to get out of the mess, you don't want revenge. You just want to do what pleases Krishna. And sometimes that may mean if you're around real negative people, that you distance yourself from them, but you still wish them well. And as long as you never give up Krishna or you never give up the process, because Bhakti and Tara, we're gonna all have tests. That's the name of the game. And if you let something scare you away from love, then you don't really want it. So you gotta stay in there. And if people act crazy, you gotta say, hey, that's your crazy. I'm not giving up Krishna. I'm not giving up Prabhupada. I'm not giving up chanting. I'm not even giving up the idea that there can be communities of loving God conscious people. Just maybe I'm not able to have it with you, and that's okay. So in that way, yeah, sometimes we have to distance ourselves, but still, pray for the other people. Because you imagine, Bhakti and Tara, we're tiny, tiny, infinitesimal beings in this huge, vast world. And we've had all these different experiences, and we're like little babies who think we got answers, and we actually don't. And that's why Krishna gives himself to us in so many ways, because he loves us. It's like the parent, loves the child, the baby wants to do his own thing, but the parent, no, you can't do your own thing, So Krishna is available for us as long as we're sincere and serious. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. So this one person is asking, how do we process the recent and ongoing police brutality? How do we look at it through the lens of Krishna consciousness? This inhumanity is very shocking. What can we do as devotees?
That is a really good question, and I'm really appreciating the devotee for asking it. Because sometimes I think in our devotee communities, we avoid certain of these questions just because they're hard questions. But if spiritual life cannot be applied to your everyday situation, then what good is it? If you're in a spiritual life that doesn't deal with where you are now, then it's not value. I would say that this is very hard. I do think it's serving one purpose in that there's some people who didn't realize how much or extensive these things were going on, and they're awakening, and they don't really want to be a part of that. And I think that's good. And I'm thinking particularly of people that may be in white bodies. They're not for that, for the mistreatment of Black people. And these situations are helping people to sort of take a stand, if you will, in their own hearts. And we all have to take stands. I'm for the right or I'm for the wrong. Like Krishna told Arjuna, you have to fight, but fight for righteous cause. So part of our fight as devotees is to transform our own hearts, to understand we're not the body and all life is connected. And then to figure out how can we help to transform the hearts of others. This is Lord Chaitanya's movement. This is Lord Nityananda all the way. The service that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda has come for the most fallen, to awaken our Krishna consciousness. And we have to figure out how as devotees we can help others do that. So one way you could pray, when you see these things happening, we can pray and ask the Lord for guidance. Like, what can I do as an individual person? But one thing you can do as an individual person is to understand the truth of things. If we're not the body, then how are we as individual devotees demonstrating that in our own lives? Because in our movement, we don't have to look at the external world. In our Hare Krishna movement, we still have racism. We still have sexism. So to do something about that where we are, which can affect the whole world. And I firmly believe that as instruments of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we can make changes like that. And by being very sincere in our own devotional service and figuring out how to be good examples. I don't have all the answers to that, this phenomenon, but I do know it's Krishna's arrangement, because Krishna is exposing, what's done in the dark is coming to light. And so that light is touching people everywhere. And so we'll just have to figure out what our role as Vaishnavas, as sincere believers in God, to help that. And every day chant with your heart like your life depended on it. Because believe it or not, the holy name is going around the world making changes. And so just even chanting very sincerely makes a difference in the world.
This one question is kind of just furthering this point of, if we're going through bad karmic experiences or weakness of heart, how do we really understand this as Krishna's mercy in order to, teach us something spiritually higher?
Well, I think going back to what I was saying about Prahlad Maharaj, that the way he was able, and Prabhupada, the way he was able to process everything was that he saw everything as Krishna. Sarvam Kalv Idam Brahma. Even his father acting like he did. And for me, Bhakti Tara, I've been diagnosed with this terminal cancer. And I've had to come face to face with that. Okay, this cancer is Krishna. And it's Krishna's way of calling me deeper. It's Krishna's way of, preparing me for that final exam. It's Krishna's way of testing my determination. It's Krishna's way of helping me to surrender, to let go and let God. So when the devotee sees everything is Krishna, when I was in the Christian world, there was a verse in the Bible, I just never got with it. He said, I, your Lord God, create the good and I create the evil. And I was like, whoa, God creates evil? Whoa, step back. But for God, there's nothing evil. It's only what is necessary as we process this material world. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And all the things that happen to devotees are not necessarily even because of their karma. It's just a unique relationship that the Lord has with each and every soul, and he knows what he's doing. And the more mature you become, the more you trust that. You can be afraid of the boogeyman, but then when you realize the boogeyman is your dad with a costume on, you know what I'm saying? Like you're a child and you say, oh, this boogeyman, he takes the costume off. You say, oh, that's daddy. Daddy's not gonna hurt me. So Krishna, all these obstacles for devotees, they're like the boogeyman, but the devotee remember that Krishna, once he takes that mask off, it's him. And so then they can relate like that.
Wow, thank you so much for that analogy. It just changed my perspective so much. It's really beautiful. One devotee is asking, what is one of the most important lessons you have learned in devotional service?
I think one of the most important lessons that I've learned in devotional service is how much Krishna loves us. It is unbelievable how much God loves each and every, and the special little things he does for everybody, you know, even the ants or the trees or the whatever. Just there's this depth of unfathomable love that Krishna has for all of his parts and parcels. And therefore, if anyone takes up the service to share that love, then Krishna just loves them, because that's the whole point. So Krishna is really anxious for us to rekindle our relationship with him. It's such a happy place to be, that relationship with God. So I think that's, and I learned that because of my mother and Prabhupada, that foundational piece.
Beautiful realization. What advice would you give a young devotee ladies leaving home and going out of state to the city to attend college?
Just be really, really careful. You know, one of the things that we're realizing today, this world is unusual, it's reshaping itself in so many ways. And sometimes people have asked my opinion. I said, you know what? Try to stay close to your support systems. If you must go to school, do not go too far from your mom and dad or aunt, uncle, and people who support you. Because this time here is very, very vulnerable time for everybody. And then somehow to maintain your spiritual connection no matter what, because that will save your life. So Prabhupada, he went to school and he had to temporarily put his deities up, which was very hard for Prabhupada because he couldn't worship them properly while he was in college, but he never forgot Krishna, not one day. There was always some chanting, some prayer, some study that he did every day. So I would say for anybody, make that your goal. That at least once a day, even if it's only 10 minutes, I connect with Krishna. And that way I would say, try to stick as close as you can to your support systems too. That would be the other thing.
Thank you. A question from Facebook. You spoke beautifully about faith and surrender to Krishna and about the battle between the higher and the lower self. How important is it in this process to also have faith in oneself? Sometimes through low self-esteem, we can really sabotage ourselves in our efforts to become solid devotees. Please elaborate.
Yeah. Because the living entity is, each of us is a spark of life or love or God, that makes us very, very valuable. And a lot of times because we're so tiny, we forget our value. But our value is always realized in connection with Krishna. So if you're not connected with Krishna, then there will be times when you won't have a good sense of yourself. Either it'll be an overly estimated value of yourself or a low value of self. It'll be an imbalance. So like the spark and the fire, the value of the spark is as long as it's a part of the fire. So keeping that connection. But one has to accept that I have some value because I'm a part of life and God. And again, that is realized in the proper association. So, keep that in mind, because some people will bring you down and they'll help you to not appreciate your value. And so if you're in good association, that's how you know the difference. Good association will help you appreciate your value. So maybe we could just take one more question, Bhaktin Tara, and then we'll do the rest next time.
Okay, sounds great. From your perspective, how can we effectively interact with Vaishnavas who are deeply involved in advocating for political parties, including gurus, without committing aparad and maintaining our faith?
Read that again, sweetie.
How can we effectively interact with Vaishnavas who are deeply involved in advocating for political parties? And I think they're saying that gurus are also advocating for political parties. And then through doing this, they don't want to commit aparad and they also want to maintain their faith.
I do think there's an element of cautiousness in this whole thing, because a sincere believer in God, a sincere spiritual scientist, has to be careful of advocating for anything that doesn't have the spiritual values and principles that are needed to heal the world. So we have to be really careful about advocating for those. Now, there was a time when Srila Prabhupada, he encouraged one of the devotees to run for office, and it was really good, but then he kind of withdrew that encouragement. And I think it was partly because Prabhupada was aware we were not mature enough yet. But at some point there will be God-conscious politicians. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, bless his heart, he predicted that judges would have tilak. So, as long as people are not serious God-conscious advocates, I don't see how devotees can advocate for them. I mean, not that we should talk negatively. So I would say to a devotee is to just be careful. Krishna has allowed everybody free will, so if they want to advocate for anything, Krishna is allowing it. But be careful that we associate with people who are after the divine principles and the things that are going to really do good for the world as a whole.
Thank you so much for the beautiful answer and for this wonderful talk. And we received a lot of comments on your singing and how it's not just your voice that's so amazing, but that you sing with such realization and with such understanding. So thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your valuable time with us. We've all learned so much. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhakti Tara and Priya Kishori. And what was the other devotee?
Sharadia, yeah.
Sharadia, bless her. I think Sharadia and I have met in Vrindavan in India, bless her heart. So I hope things are going well. But thank you all for this wonderful service that you're doing. And little by little, because the potency of the sincere devotees, the world is seeing a change. And I'm happy to see devotees like Bhakti Tara and Priya Kishori and Saradia, young devotees committed to appreciating Krishna and to serving Krishna. Never underestimate the value of being a servant. That is our key happiness. So, all right, we'll say Hare Krishna and thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, dear Mother Krsnanandini. Thank you very much for your precious time. We really hope that you'll be able to be with us again.
I hope so too, sweetie. Take care.